Welcome. We're in the Platinum Room. It's Paul Stanley. How are you today?
I'm good.
Fantastic.
Very good.
Great to
Good.
see you. So
Always
excited about the Soul Station shows coming up. If you could take us back a little bit. I know you grew up in New York City. Talk about, falling in love with music a little bit. What some of that first music you heard, what spoke to you and eventually got you to play?
I was very blessed because New York was such a fertile scene for all kinds of music. The Apollo Theater, although I could never get up there, certainly had a diehard following of soul music, R&B music, part of almost what they called the Chitlin circuit. Then we had the Fillmore East, which was the legendary home and spawning ground of so many great acts that would play for $3, $4, and $5.
Yeah.
I saw Humble Pie there, Derek and the Dominoes, Zeppelin. I saw Yardbirds with Jimmy Page. The list goes on and on. So I was very fortunate. I saw Otis Redding in New York. I saw Solomon Burke. I saw the Temptations. It was a wide array of music, so I was very blessed.
And obviously, rock and roll is based, the roots are in R&B and blues and gospel, soul music. What was it about those soulful performances of these artists that really spoke to you the most?
Well, soul has no color. And Steve Marriott with Humble Pie had as much soul as Wilson Pickett. So soul knows no color. It's something that you bring to your music, and it may be not as overt as being R&B or soul music per se. There's some great rock and roll that has a huge amount of soul in it. Soul is just commitment and something that comes from inside you. So again, I was blessed to hear great British invasion music, whether it was Billy J. Kramer and the Dakotas and Jerry and the Pacemakers and the Searchers, Dave Clark 5, Honeycombs, the list goes on. So there was a lot of great music that led ultimately to the Yardbirds, let's say, and the Who, and Yardbirds certainly led to Led Zeppelin. And then you had Jeff Beck and so many other great guitar player based bands, Cream.
Yeah.
So there was just a lot of great music, and I tried to soak it all in. For me, there's two kinds of music, good and bad. So I think people do themselves a great disservice when they limit their musical listening as much as if you limited your food intake. It's really healthy to take everything in. That's why it's very interesting when people go, what's with you and Soul Station? That's my roots as much as anything. And there's brilliant writing, and on top of it, we're living in a time now where we've been spoon-fed computerized music with drum beats and auto-tuned vocals, and we're sold that as all kinds of things, rock, soul, all kinds of genres, and it's just not the real thing. So to be able to put together a 13-piece band of stellar top-flight musicians who've played with everybody from Stevie Wonder to Smokey to Natalie Cole to Whitney Houston to Santana, John Mayer, the list just goes on. Have a group of people who can, with me, recreate those great songs and play them the way they were meant to be played. Delphonics, Temptations, Stylistics, Isley Brothers, to play that stuff with the respect it deserves, as opposed to doing a half-assed copy of it or a new rendition of it. Long answer to a short question.
Well, we love it, and it kind of makes you proud to be an American, because we fell in love with all those British bands you mentioned, and then we found out who their roots were, and it's the American soul and blues artists.
It's very interesting because you can hear so much of Little Richard and Paul McCartney, certainly early on and still to this day. And to hear the Beatles on their first couple of albums doing You Really Got a Hold on Me, Please Mr. Postman, Twist and Shout, they were doing Motown. So for me, that's you know, that's a seal of approval on that stuff. Not that it needed any.
Yeah.
That music was the music of young America, Motown and Philly soul. Unfortunately, it has been relegated to being samples on somebody's song when those songs stand up beautifully.
Well, it's such a treat to hear you, play this music because people, they feel so good when they hear it. But again, it helps them go back and discover a lot of this music. And I always say it's very important for us to show these pioneers that especially are still alive, like a Little Richard or Chuck Berry or Jerry Lee Lewis, show them the love that we have and the appreciation of what they gave us, the Smokey Robinsons, and we're losing too many of our heroes. But while they're alive, I think the best thing we can do is celebrate their music and let people know that they're the roots of everything that's going on today.
It's really interesting when we play live to see all the people in the audience singing along, not because I asked them to sing along, but because those songs are inside everybody. When you hear Just My Imagination or Tracks of My Tears, you just immediately go, oh, I know that one. And it's in our DNA. So I'm very fortunate to have a band of brothers and sisters who are so dedicated and committed to doing this music the way it's supposed to be done. We're not a carbon copy. We're not. It's not sterile. The beauty of that music is that it has passion. The greats that we listen to this day didn't have perfection. They had passion. So when we play, that passion is there. It's not a paint by number copy of those songs, but to hear those live is look. I'm being selfish. I do it because I love those songs.
Yeah.
It's a bonus that other people want to hear them.
Absolutely. It speaks to your heart. Now, after an amazing, 40 plus years now with KISS and all the great successes, you rocket towards half a century. What were the seeds inside of you that started this wheel turning for Soul Station?
Again, my roots are so diverse, and that music has been so much a part of me. I've always been so impressed. Smokey Robinson's writing is phenomenal. His lyrics have always been crazy, and that's the sign of, genius. A kid from the ghetto in Detroit singing about in Tracks of My Tears, Tears of a Clown, actually. He sings about Pagliacci. He sings just like Pagliacci did. I try to keep my sadness hid. Now, Pagliacci is an Italian opera. So for a kid from the ghetto to even be aware of that at his age, I just go, well, that's remarkable. So having seen the Temptations live decades ago, just reinforced for me how great those Motown and Philly soul bands were. To be able to pay tribute to that stuff and celebrate it the way it should be, it was just something that has been itching in my head to do for a long time. And the first time I put the band together, we all were just like, this is the most fun we could have. Let's do more.
Fantastic. Well, I know, like I say, that music is timeless. It'll go on forever, and you're doing your part to not only celebrate these great authors, these great musicians and singers, but again, it's getting harder and harder to find great new music because we're kind of regurgitating what's in the past. And like you say, with technology, there's so many shortcuts that a lot of it's not coming from a deep soul. It's coming from hitting a knob or a button.
Well, we're regurgitating, but we're not getting it's not coming from the gut. It's coming from much higher up. So we're kind of puking out, the most superficial aspect of that music, and that music deserves more than to just be a loop.
Yeah. And like I say, a lot of these guys, they're still living. Who would have thought that Chuck Berry would outlive David Bowie? Who would have thought that Little Richard would still be here when, you know, Lemmy and these other guys are gone. It's amazing that we have these treasures, you know, still here in America. And you know, this music is you know, one of the greatest exports that America has to the world, you know.
Well, for me to be able to have a horn section, 3 backup singers, 2 keyboard players, and really immerse myself in this wall of sound is incredible. It's something that takes a lot of musicians to be able to do, and it takes a high caliber of musician to be able to do. And on top of it, if you look at us, we're all smiling because it's just awesome.
Yeah, I had the pleasure of sitting with Paul Rodgers last year, and he had the cream of the crop of the Memphis musicians
Yeah.
at the Grammy Museum.
Yeah.
And again, it's that paying tribute to that roots of you know, soul music that is just, you know, such a treat for people around the world.
Yeah, Paul invited me to that, and unfortunately, I just couldn't make it down, and you know, he was like, "You got it." And I heard the recordings, which were amazing because he's such a stellar singer.
Yeah.
And it goes back to, I think, to be a great singer performer, you have to know the roots of what you're doing. My son, who's just an amazing guitar player and singer and writer, when he first started to play guitar, I said, if you want to play rock music, you have to start with the blues. And if you're going to do that, it's not about listening to Eric Clapton, although that's great, but you'll either turn out a mimic of him or a thin parody of it. If you want to be up there with the big leagues, you got to listen to who those people listen to.
Yeah.
Jimi Hendrix's first song that he played was in Purple Haze. So you got to listen to who Jimmy listened to. Then you got to listen to who they listened to. You got to work your way back, literally. Go to Robert Johnson, then go to Blind Boy Fuller. Work your way forward. Hubert Sumlin. The more you know, the more you bring to your music, and that's probably part of what makes Paul Rodgers great. Is he's got the goods because he knows the roots of it.
Yeah.
And I'm not so bad myself.
Well, from what we've heard at the Roxy show, it was fantastic. I heard you did a little recording there. Is there any plans to capture what you're doing?
Yeah, the recordings we did there are just stellar. They sound like studio recordings because they're that good, and the quality, not only in the musicianship but in the technical end of the recording is just brilliant. So, yeah, that needs to see the light of day. And I'd love to do some new songs, new original stuff with Soul Station. That's very much in keeping with the grace that we're playing.
Yeah. And I see your teammate from Kiss, Eric Singer, is in the band. What prompted you to bring Eric along the ride, or did he demand to be a part of it?
Eric is such a natural, and people don't realize his roots are so deep. He was playing big band before he was playing rock. His dad was a musician who did a lot of social functions and played in a big band. Eric played big band. So he, again, really understands the roots of what we're doing. You couldn't get some guy from some thrash metal band and throw him into playing the Spinners. It just wouldn't work because the knowledge and the depth wouldn't be there. So Eric was, I mean, that was a no-brainer.
Yeah, yeah. Now I know we're starting to see other sides of your creativity, not only with Soul Station, but with your paintings. And talk about, you know, the ideas of, you know, how many different creative, you know, impulses or releases, you know, there are out there, and that creative people should explore as many as possible.
The challenges and the things to explore are endless. And the more you explore, the more you see there is to explore. So I think that when we become complacent, it's because we're not challenging ourselves. And I think you find out, certainly I find out who I am and define myself by what I do. So whether it's doing Phantom of the Opera or painting or Soul Station, it's all about finding outlets that define myself for me.
That's amazing stuff. Now, as far as advice you give to young creative people, like I know you said you told your son, don't just go to, who you know, find out who their roots are. What other advice do you have, again, in this kind of age of people looking for a shortcut? There's so much technology at our fingertips. A lot of people have lost that art of really dedicating themselves to an instrument. They want to, find a machine that they can jump to the goal line. What are some of the other tips and advice you give to young creative people today?
It goes back to the same thing. Learn to walk before you run. Pick up an acoustic guitar before you pick up an electric guitar. It's harder, it's less forgiving, and it'll give you a better foundation for playing an electric guitar. In terms of wanting to get into the music business or any of the related businesses, if you have any doubts about it, find something else to do, because you should only get involved in music if you are compelled, if you have no choice, if it's not a rational decision, if it's something that is an emotional commitment, then do it. But if you have any questions about whether you should do something else, the answer is yeah. If you feel that, then by all means find something else to do.
Those are great words of wisdom. Now, obviously, the other big change that's gone on is the evolution of the music business. So many of the labels have been gobbled up by the big corporations. The next generation here, unlike ours in the 70s, don't have the record label support, don't have the teams that would develop the artist. But now we have all these independent tools, ways to be your own label, to distribute your own music, make videos on your own. What are some of the advice you give to those two, rather than sit there and wait for some imaginary record deal that might not happen? Really go out there and develop your craft and kind of find your audience, and then maybe some companies will come and get behind you.
Well, there's no substitute for playing live. You're never going to learn your craft by being on a talent show on television. To be great as a performer, you have to go out and perform. You can go to the gym all you want, but you don't find out how good you are as a fighter till you get in the ring. And then you perfect what you do. So there's no substitute for going out and playing. And again, it's a much tougher time now. The idea of that pot of gold at the end isn't there for most. So I caution everybody that if this isn't a true passion of yours, don't do it, because there's too many disappointments. And with the demise of record companies, and certainly the record companies that once championed artists, when we first started out, most bands got a 3-album commitment. They were nurturing you and developing you for 3 albums. Now you put out a single, and if it doesn't work, you're history. So for me, it's a serious thing. If you want to commit yourself to music, do it understanding the downside. Unfortunately, with the internet and with social media being what it is, I think that ethics and morality have found their way to the back seat with a generation perhaps that somehow believes that music should be free. And that's coming from people who expect to get paid for the job they're doing, which is very ironic. So they want to be salaried for their job, but they want your music for free. So it's a twisted logic, and I'm sorry to see people have to negotiate with one hand tied behind their back because they don't really have a choice. It's either take what you can get in the market or get nothing. So it's tough out there. I don't envy anybody starting, and it's all well and good to say, I'm only doing this for love of music, but when you can't feed yourself or you can't pay the rent, you'll think twice.
Sure. In today's industry, we wouldn't have had Kiss making it all the way to Kiss Alive. We wouldn't have had Springsteen making it all the way to Born to Run. Wouldn't have had Prince make it all the way to 1999. You know, they would have been long gone, you know, before those points. So, you know, independently, at least you have a chance to kind of develop on your terms. You know, if you own and control your own destiny, nobody can drop you. You know, and as long as you can find even a small audience and sustain yourself, you can grow. So the beautiful thing about the independent side is, you know, you're in business for yourself, but you don't have to be in business by yourself. There's a lot of great, you know, organizations and companies out there.
True, but the size of your success is much more limited than it once was.
Of course.
And the chances of your success are much more limited than they once were. And once again, it's always interesting when somebody who's downloading files, stealing music, or sharing music, that's kind of like sharing somebody's car that they don't know that you took their car out, but we're sharing your car.
Right.
So it's just very interesting to be in a position where somebody is saying, well, you're rich enough. Well, I'll decide when I'm rich enough. And so
Right.
things have become a bit distorted, and hopefully they'll, you know, the water will find its level again. And I don't worry about me, honestly.
Yeah.
The ethics are what bother me, but I'm more concerned with the person who's starting out now and how this all impacts them. I'm done, you know. Look, my rent's paid. I'm in good shape.
Sure. But, you know, for music to sustain itself, it's been around for hundreds of years. We need to have opportunities for great artists to be heard, and these great songwriters, you know, who, again, Soul Station and Kiss and these great artists that are still alive, we're inspiring that generation, and, you know, they need to have an opportunity. And obviously music in school is one of the first thing that goes when the budgets get tight. Why is it so important for us to be able to, you know, give opportunities for youth to, you know, create and take part in the arts, you know, as far as an overall society?
I think I was blessed because my parents are European stock. My mom was born in Germany, and my dad was first generation here from Poland. And the arts are taken much more seriously isn't even the right word. It's just part of what you do. Part of your life is listening to good music, going to museums. So I think that's vital, and I think it's vital that school really implores you and tells you you must, you know, be exposed to great music. You must be exposed to art. It makes you a better person.
Yeah, a world without art is a scary thought.
Well, it's not my world.
You know, and these world problems and everything that we're having, you know, it's you know, there's a hope in there that, you know, creatively, you know, artists have always had a voice, whether it's been from back in the Vietnam War era to, you know, all the issues that we deal with. Why is it important for artists to kind of stand up and have their voice heard out there in the world?
I think it's important, especially because art finds a way to make current events and world affairs beautiful, no matter how ugly they are. Look at Banksy. You know, look at Banksy doing these great social commentaries on walls around the world. Art can draw attention to things in a way that written media may not, social media may not. You see a painting on a wall, and you suddenly go, oh, you know, that has to do with controversy in France that's going on. Or it's just very interesting. Art has a way of making social situations and political situations either palatable or enticing. So I think art is essential. I don't know, you know, where I would be without art. It's part of my life.
Yeah. Well, Paul, it's always a pleasure. I know Soul Station shows are coming up, and it's obviously the tip of the iceberg, you know, for the people that really want to hear this music. Is there any other plans to take this on a bigger tour or to reach more people with this?
Yeah, there's practical aspects though. When you have a 13-piece crackerjack band, you have to make sure that you can sustain it.
Yeah.
But there is talk and there are plans to tour. I'd love to go and play larger venues, not arenas, but perhaps theaters, performing arts centers. The band's just that good, and we're having too much fun to not go out and do it. And these upcoming shows, the 26th, 27th, and 28th, are a chance to witness something that you're going to want to be a part of again.
Well, we're counting the hours. Can't wait for that. Thank you so much for paying tribute to this music and all these great artists, and we can't wait for, you know, more to come. Thank you so
Me
much.
too.
Appreciate it.